Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. Today we have with us our very own Marlene Mankin, and she is one of Innovia's application consultants. She will be going over budgets in NAV 2018. And we just ask that if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to type them into the questions box, and toward the end of the webinar we'll get them addressed in our Q&A time. And we do record all of our webinars, so this will be available for you to review again, or if you'd like to share it with anyone, you're more than welcome to. We'll have that available on our website at innovia.com by the end of the week. So now I'll turn it over to Marlene, and she'll kick off our presentation.
Thank you, Angie. Hello, everyone. It's that time of the year, which no one looks forward to, is creating your budgets for the next year. So I'm excited to show you some of the advantages to using Dynamics NAV for helping you create budgets. So let's go ahead and get started. So our objectives for today, we're going to create a budget, populate a budget, and there's multiple ways of populating a budget: manually, copying, and importing from Excel. And then hopefully out of this you get some wonderful, helpful tips to make your budgeting easier. And then the last section, I just want to go over the difference between a GL budget versus a sales budget. So I'm all about getting started. So let's go ahead and create some budgets. So here we've got Dynamics NAV 2018, but budgeting has not changed a whole lot in the last couple versions. If you have a really old version, it would look somewhat different. So to create a budget, I'm all about the search button too. So we're going to go down. I'm going to go to the menu side. You notice on the right side, I go to the menu. I'm going to go ahead and hit General Ledger Budgets, and we're going to create a brand new budget. It's as easy as just clicking the new button, typing in what your name is for your new budget. And we're set. You'll notice here that it automatically populates your two global dimensions, and it allows for 4 additional dimensions for you to add. Next, what we'll do is we'll edit our budget. You'll notice this page is set up in 3 sections. So we've got our general tab. On here, it's going to allow you to choose your lines and your columns. So you'll notice you've got your dimensions in there, and you've got a few other options. And then your columns are the same way. You got your lines and your columns. And then you can view it by different variations. You can go by day, by week, by month, year, etc. I tend to do all my budgeting in monthly. So I'm going to leave it at month, but know that you have those options out there. You also can add a rounding factor if you want to. I'm just going to leave that alone. The last feature here is where you can show column. If you check it, it just pulls in the month. And then here it's pulling in the field. So with this, it's just the name of that field. And then you've got your general ledger over here, but I'm going to jump down to the 3rd section first and talk about it. What we've got here is a date filter. I'm going to change this to be the 2019 since I'm trying to work on the 2019. Nope, don't know what it did there. I better type it in. And you've got 2 other views down here that I like to show you. The income statement and the balance sheet. It's going to show you different general ledger numbers is all that does. If we chose the balance sheet, you would see more general ledger account numbers. If we went back to the income statement, you're going to see where it starts off with the income general ledger numbers. So whichever you're looking at just makes it easier for you to budget. Has other additional filters where you can do a category. You can filter on your dimensions if you want, and then if you would have added any additional dimensions, they would show here. The center section is where you're actually going to enter your budgets. We're going to start off with the manually entering a budget. I'm going to go over here. I'll go down to sales and put in an amount. Now you'll notice that it pulls the amount over into your budgeted amount, and then it also brings it to the total. So if I put 5,000 in this one, and so you notice that it's accumulating. Another thing that's really a nice little tip is, just like in other areas of NAV, when you're doing journal entries, you can actually enter in data and put in, say, 400 plus, you're doing calculations, plus 1,000 plus 989 plus. So if you had certain numbers that you were working with and you just knew what those totals were and you wanted to come up with your budget, you can do it this way and it will calculate for you. So it calculated the number for you. This can be very tedious. You can imagine with all of the months and all of the general ledger numbers, and since this is so tedious, this is why a lot of people tend to stay away from the budgets on NAV. But NAV has added some really cool features. So what we're going to do is we're going to exit out of here, and I'm going to create another new budget. And I'm just going to call this one And what I'm going to use is a feature called copy. And we're going to copy it from 2018's budget. So we're going to click on 2018, and I'm going to go out to edit the budget. Now you'll notice this one does have numbers in it, which is great. And there's a feature up on the top ribbon called copy. We're going to click on the copy. In this section, you're going to see 3 more sections: copy from, to, and apply. The source is a cool area. I'm going to copy from the general ledger budget entry, which copies the budget entries from whatever budget name you copy from. The GL entry literally will copy from what your actuals were in NAV. So if you wanted to get a copy of what your actuals were, you can do the GL entry. I don't have enough data in this database to be able to do that, so we're just going to copy from the budgets. You can specify the general ledger account number that you want to pull from, and maybe if you were doing it from the general ledger entries, you may want to specify specific general ledger account numbers. It's asking what date you're copying from, which is in this budget. We're going from 2001 or January 1st, 18 through 12/18. And then include or exclude the closing entries. Doesn't really matter in the budget entry when you're copying that source. If it was in the general ledger entry, you would want to either include or exclude. You can specify dimensions. Right now, we're not going to cover that in this little section. We'll come back to it. You're going to choose the name you want to copy to. So we're going to copy this to the 2019 new. And if you were specifying general ledger numbers up here, you would specify them down here. But since I've left them blank, it's going to copy everything. The adjustment factor is a real cool feature. If you want to take last year's budget and increase it by 10%, you can put in 1.1 and it will multiply your budget by that amount and increase your budget by 10%. So also, if you want to decrease your budget by 10%, you can do 0.9 and it would decrease it by 10%. We're going to leave it as 1, but know that that feature's there. It's a really great feature. Rounding method. This is definitely more important. I'm just going to leave it at whole, but you can see where this would be very important if you were using the general ledger entries. Date formula. Now, everyone probably is used to the date formulas. I'm going to do 1 year so that it pushes it 1 year forward on all of my budgets. But sometimes people do budgets on a monthly basis, so they might use 1M and they're copying from month to month. Then the last part is the compression. So you can go all the way down to the day on this. I'm not sure when you'd probably use day for budgeting, but I have seen sales numbers budgeted by week. And then of course there's sometimes you might want an overall and do a year. I'm just going to leave it at month. And we're going to click OK. And hopefully it starts copying for us. So it asks also, which I love that part of NAV, where it always asks you if you're sure you want to do something. Okay, so it copied. So let's go look at our budget. And we're going to edit this budget. And now if we look down, oops, we don't have any numbers. It's because this date down here. So we're going to just change this to 19. There we go. So now we've got our budget numbers. So this gives you a real nice head start to get some budgeting done instead of having to enter everything manually. The next part I want to cover is parsing your data. In the last company I worked for, what we would do is when budgets came around, we would take our general ledger and we'd parse it out to different department heads, and they would do their own budgets, get it approved, and we'd bring it back in. So that's what I'm going to show you. This could help any of your department heads, and it will help you bringing data back in. So we're going to go ahead. I'm just going to make this balance sheet, and so I can see more budgets. And we're going to go ahead and export it to Excel. Again, another screen with a lot of options. You do need to put in a start date. Now you'll notice here we did this one. It does start off with 2019. We're going to go 12 on the periods, but you could change that if you wanted to. We're going to go monthly. We're only requiring our department heads to do monthly. Right now, I'm not going to pull in these. We'll come back to it because I want to show you the difference. We're not going to pull in any dimensions. I am going to leave the totaling formulas, and that's where it brings total lines through. And I'll show you how that works for the spreadsheet. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one to sales. And that will be my example. And I am going to go ahead and say OK. And Excel should open up pretty soon. Here we go. So on the bottom, you're going to see Excel. I'm going to make it larger so it's easier for everyone to see. So here's your budget. So what you would do is you would save this document name. It's important. So many times I've forgotten to save something. I've worked on something and forgotten to save it. When it pulls anything out in Excel from NAV, you do need to save it if you're going to keep it to import it back in. So many times I had to recreate just because I did that. I'm just going to leave it at this name is good. So now we've got our budget out there. I'm the sales manager. I'm going through. I'm going to go ahead and make some changes here so that we can see them come through. So you've got your January through December. We'll take this first column. The other thing that's nice about this is that a lot of times department heads or people who work in different departments might not realize if it needs to be a credit or a debit. So right off the bat, they can see that this is sales numbers and that it needs to come back to you as a credit. So I'm going to put in 70,000. Just makes it easier. And then I'm going to just go over to April here and I'm going to put in going to make it a bigger number so that we can actually see if it changes. We're just going to change a few numbers. I'm going to save the file. So they would go through and do all their budgets, save the file, close the file, and then I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to import. Now importing has its own little options. You've got here where you chose the budget name, and then this feature or this option of replace entries or add entries. This is really important because add entries will literally add them to what you have. So the only time you'd really ever use add entries if you have a totally blank budget and pull them in for the first time. So usually it's a brand new budget with nothing in it. You might want to add entries. Most of the time you will be doing replace entries. And since we parsed this out to the sales department, they made their budget entries and adjustments. When we pull it back in, it will replace the entries that are there. If we chose add, it may double up on our budget, which would be a nice budget, but not realistic. So we're going to leave it as replace, and we're going to say OK, and it's going to go out and ask us which report we want to pull in. Okay, so it's there. It confirms that you do want to replace the entries, and it says, yes, it's been updated. So now let's see if I can remember which journal entry or which general ledger number I used. I think it was 43 something. Okay. Oh, so there we are. You can see 70,000 is there and 100,000 is there. So now you have an updated budget. So you can see if you've gone ahead and sent this out to multiple departments at your company, and as you get them in, as long as those departments aren't covering the same general ledger number, you can just import them and replace. If you have overlap, you would want to possibly merge them together, or have those two departments work together on the few that there's overlap on. Now I'm going to show you if we export with dimensions. We're going to cover the dimension part. So I'm going to export again, and this time I'm going to export with dimensions. And I'm just going to choose my two global dimensions and show you the difference. And I'm going to leave the whole thing, and we're just going to click OK. And we've got our Excel spreadsheet here. And you'll notice up here, you've got your dimensions. You have two columns of dimensions. So the advantage of this, let me go down to an expense. Oops, went too far. What would be a good one? Here's a good one, travel. So say, for instance, first of all, I'm going to save it just so that I have it stored in case I need to get back to it. Pulling it from Excel allows it to pull over the drop downs for your dimensions. So if this was admin's budget on travel, say you wanted to add the rest of the departments on travel, you can insert. I'm going to insert twice, two rows, and I'm going to copy this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the other departments. So now what we've literally done is we've gone ahead and created budgets for the different departments for travel. So now you can fill in your budget, and then you can import it back into NAV, and it will separate it by dimension with dimensions. Hope that makes sense. I'll just save it and go back. The next thing I want to show you, and it works the same way. It's going to pull it in, and you could actually filter then by dimensions if you wanted. Up here at the top, they've got two reports that they're showing. One is the trial balance and the other is the budget. I'm going to go ahead and just pull the budget. And I'm going to start off with 2019. Notice that you could just show the amounts in thousands, or you can go ahead and use the budgets only. So we're going to just do a preview. Takes a minute. Here we go. So this shows you your overall of your budget. The nice thing about this too is that this is literally what you can take if you have to take this to someone else who then approves the overall budget, or if it has to go to a board meeting where they have to approve the budget, you can print this out and they've got the budget on everything. The other one is the trial balance by budget, which is nice too, because it really is a trial balance with your budget included. This takes just a minute also to run. Oh, I forgot to put a date in there. There we go. I'm having to put the full year in because this database is actually in 2020, but I wanted it to be accurate for everyone's budgets for next year. There we go. This one ran faster. So this one, you're going to actually see it looks just like a trial balance from NAV, one of their standard ones. So it makes it nice. So those are the general ledger budgets. And next, what we'll do is we will go to the sales budgets. These are also many times people refer to them as item budgets, but they aren't actually item budgets. The difference between general ledger budgets and sales budgets are the general ledger budgets look at the general ledger entries. The sales budgets look at inventory. So the sales budgets never look at the general ledger. If you ever have where you're doing sales analysis and it does not match your general ledger, you really need to look and see if there's been any entries made to sales that did not go through a normal sales process like a sales order or sales invoice. So this is very similar to the general ledger budget. You're going to create a new one. This one also, even though it doesn't show in columns, it automatically includes your global dimensions. And then it allows for 3. So the general ledger, I'll try to point out the differences. The general ledger budget allows for 4 additional dimensions besides the global dimensions. The sales budget only allows for 3 besides the global dimensions. And I know the question is going to be why. I have no idea why Microsoft wrote it that way, but they did. So let's go ahead and the same way, we're going to go up and edit the budget. Now, one of the advantages of the sales budget would be to see what possibly, to possibly plan for future expected demand. So you can see trends, you can see if you're hitting your budgets, you can calculate variances and possibly plan for different demands. When we're in here, it's very similar to the other one where you've got your lines and your columns, and you've got your global dimensions there too. You can show the value as sales amount, cost of goods sold amount, and quantity. Now I can see where on items, where we have it here, quantity might be the value, what you might want to have your budget entered as. I also can see where you might want to set up multiple sales budgets, not just one for the year. You might want to set up one by item, and you might want to set up one by customer. So view by allows you the full thing. I'm just going to stick with month because I tend to look at all my budgets on a monthly basis. You can add a rounding factor. I'm not going to. And then it has the same feature with the column name. Down here, you do have a date filter again. I'm going to put in 01/01/19. So now it's going to show me that on the column. Just like the general ledger, you can enter in manually. You can enter in through this screen or just type in, whatever the amount might be. Say you expect to sell, $5,000 worth of items or bicycles in January. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change this customers because I actually like the way it looks for customers. And a lot of times you might have the sales rep do budgets based on customer and not necessarily how many of each item. So the same thing here, you can do a manual entry. You can calculate the entry. Say this one's got 10,000. I'm just going to put some data in here. And they usually have about 8,000 that they purchase in April. And down here, we've got this customer who usually does 5,000 from us. And then towards the end of the year, they do another 5,000. So you can manually enter those budgets. Of course, just like the other one, you can export to Excel. One of the features here is create it into a new document or update existing. If you create it into a new one, it just pulls it up just like it does in the general ledger. The only piece I'm not really fond of in this is that it doesn't give you the customer's name. Even though it has the customer's name here, it doesn't pull it into the spreadsheet. It only pulls in the code. So you can see where this could be difficult for someone to update when it just has a code and not the customer's name. I have created in the past where I've gone ahead and inserted a column right here and added, copied and pasted the customer's names in so that way it's there. Or you could do a lookup and have it look up the customer's name and populate. Then what you can do, I'm going to close out of here. I'm going to show you another feature. As you update your balances, so say you import them back in your budget, after that, you come back in and you're tweaking some of them. If you shared a budget, say with the salesperson or the sales manager, and you made a change, you can literally export and update an existing document. So it allows you to go out and grab a document that's already been created and update it. Once you say yes on it, it asks you again to make sure that that's the document you want to update so it doesn't mess someone up, and then it updates that document. So since it updates that document, it should leave those names in if you added those names into an existing document. I think if there's anything else I want to show you on sales, you can export the new, existing. Oh yeah, I do want to show you one other thing. From here, while we're in there, both on the general ledger and the sales, you can go to the previous period and the next period, which is kind of nice. And this is showing day. Let me go back down to month so it's obvious for you. And of course it's not. Not sure what happened there. Oh, I know, I wasn't in the right. I wasn't in one of those other ones. But you can scroll between the two multiple periods in the same budget. None of those budgets have multiple years is the problem. But if you had multiple years in that one budget, you would be able to scroll between the periods. As I said, the advantage in this, another advantage in the sales budgets is to be able to put it into an analysis report. So out here I have created a small analysis report. This session we're not going to be covering analysis reports, which would make a really great webinar. We're just going to go ahead and show you what you can do. So hopefully you know how to already make a sales analysis. This one is using my budget, customer with budget, and I'm just going to go ahead and show the matrix. And you can see here I just create a little spreadsheet that's going ahead and comparing, showing you the differences or variance. So this makes a nice little report, whether you're giving it to management or giving it to a sales rep to see where he sits on his budget. Okay, so what I'd like to do is just summarize what we saw today. We've created a budget. I showed you different ways that you can populate that budget. And then we also covered the difference between a general ledger budget and a sales budget. And I really highly recommend that you go back and practice this now that you've seen how it actually works, and try it in your test database first. But the advantage, or there is another thing with budgets that makes it nice and easy, is that you can actually go through and delete your budget. So if I went in here, and this is with general ledger and with sales, I can literally delete the budget and it's gone. So you can try it, and if it's not the way you expected, you can delete the one and start over. If you start using a budget and it's a current year, I don't recommend you delete it. So are there any questions out there? Angie, have any questions come through?
Not at this time, Marlene.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad you were able to join me today. I hope I was able to get you excited about the multiple ways that you can make this task much easier for you and your company. I want to thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, Marlene. That was a very good presentation. And thank you everyone who attended. We look forward to seeing you on one of our future webinars. So if you go to our website and take a look at the events page at innovia.com and check out some of the future events that we have. Our next webinar that we have coming up will be on November 27th, and that is going to be over Business Central. Tom Dorn is going to give an overview on Business Central on November 27th. So if that interests you, please register for that webinar. And like I said, this will be available on our website for you to review again, or if you want to share it with anyone, it'll be on our website by the end of the week, and that's innovia.com. So again, thank you for attending, and we look forward to seeing you on one of our future webinars. Have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.